play the theme song.
All right, so I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you that.
Hand me that.
You sit and relax.
Hi guys, how are you?
All right, we're going to have a couple quick ground rules. Because of COVID, I have to say this, all right? Behave yourselves. No mauling the guest. He'll probably just throw you around the room anyway. Also, if you have a question for Al, I will bring the microphone to you. I will hold the microphone for you. You get to do the talking, all right? But we'll have some fun, all
You
right?
can ask any question you want. The only dumb one is the one you don't ask.
There you go. All right. So, Al, my first question,
Yes.
how did you get into this in the first place?
I broke into professional wrestling in 1982, a very long time ago. That was back during the time where it was easier to be made man in the mafia than it was to get into the wrestling business. And it was a much more difficult time to do that. I had spent a lot of time, this was pre-internet days. I don't know if you guys ever, probably don't even know a world that doesn't have that now. So when I was 14, I decided I wanted to be a professional wrestler, and I had to walk to my local library because they had phone books for every major city in the United States. And then I would get the wrestling magazines, and I would find out that the Crockett promotion was, Jim Crockett Promotions was in Charlotte, North Carolina. AWA Vern Gagne's promotion was in Minneapolis, etc., etc. I would get the phone book for that city. I would look up the phone on me, or after a while, because I did it for several years, they'd get to know who I was. They'd put the phone down and leave me on hold, or they'd talk to me for a while. My dad in high school, and I got a hold of Gene Anderson and the Jim Crockett Promotions, and he told me they were having a tryout. And prior to that, I had met Jim Lancaster, the guy who had ultimately ended up training me, and he was a journeyman wrestler, and he was starting his own promotion, his own operation, and needed wrestlers. And but I went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, sold my car, took a 24-hour bus ride on Greyhound buses. If any of you have ever traveled on a Greyhound bus, you know that is the most cruel and unusual torture for a human being to experience. Went to Charlotte, and I basically got ran to death and exhausted, and then got beat up and got my nose broke by Ole and Gene, and bit on my back, and sent on my way. Came back and spoke to Jim Lancaster, and was trained, and got into the wrestling business, and I've been doing it for a living for 39 years. So I haven't had to grow up for 39 years. Awesome.
How do you hang in there for 39 years? It's an endurance sport. That's more than just strength. You got to be able to keep up.
Well, I mean, when you do what you love to do, it's not that hard. So,
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
I've been very blessed to get to do what I'm passionate about and love to do for as long as I've gotten to do it.
That's awesome.
And, you know, I consider myself to be a very lucky man. So.
Anybody have a question for Al? All right.
Yes.
Coming over to this gentleman
I got a
here.
question.
Go ahead, bud.
Don't be shy.
I got it. Oh, okay. Who pitched the dog storyline?
The Kennel from Hell match storyline, that was Vince Russo. He had seen the movie Son of Sam, and where the Chihuahua would speak to the serial killer, and he had the idea because, true story, that was inspired by Mr. Fuji, who was known for being very excessively cruel when he would rip people, play practical jokes. He had a neighbor who he hated the neighbor's dog because the dog would bark incessantly. And so one day he kidnapped the dog and invited the neighbor a week later over for dinner because the neighbor was distraught about losing the dog, and actually had cooked the dog and fed it to his neighbor. So that was the inspiration for that whole story.
Any other questions in the room so far?
I don't think anybody expected that answer,
No,
but
that was
yeah,
amazing.
that's an actual true story.
That's amazing. All right, my new friend here.
He actually cooked
What was
the
your name
dog.
again, buddy?
Jared has a question for
Hey,
you.
Jared,
Why did you always carry around like that fake mannequin head?
why did I carry around the mannequin head? Because they had no legs and couldn't walk on their own. And it's rude if you have a friend and they want to travel with you to just leave them behind. Otherwise, You leave them behind, I go home, all they do is complain to me nonstop that they didn't get to travel with me. Of course, they also complain whenever I stick them in the suitcase, and then, you know, they like go put them through TSA, through the security, and they're like, hey, the x-rays are gonna give me cancer. I'm like, shut up, just ride through, you'll be fine. Now, I put them in the overhead bin, all they do is complain about that because they act like they can't breathe. I'm like, if you can't breathe, I can't hear you because you can't talk. And I'm not buying a plane ticket to put you in the seat because the seatbelt doesn't sit around you, so.
You can tell they've had a very long-lasting relationship together.
Yeah.
They've been. What's the evolution of that friendship, you and Head? How did that come to pass?
Well, you know, we met in New Britain, Connecticut. Our eyes connected, and it was true love right from there.
Right from the beginning.
Right from the beginning.
That's
Now, that
amazing.
doesn't always mean we get along. You know what I mean?
No.
It takes a lot of work. With the relationships are, you know, they're a challenge. So
If you have a best friend, sometimes you do squabble.
sometimes you do.
You do.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Anybody have any other questions? Let's keep this going.
It's the interactive part of the show, guys. You can ask anything you want.
Nah, they just like
Shy.
you.
Oh,
Okay,
there we go.
We got a gentleman here. Go ahead.
There you go.
So you mentioned the ribs and stuff.
Yes.
So one of the funniest things I'd seen actually involved you and McFoley at a house show in Montreal. He wrote about it in his book.
Oh, yeah.
So he had you up and pulled your trunks down and kind of
No,
flashed
Nick
the
didn't
audience.
have me up and pull my trunks down.
No?
Here's what
Remember it
happened.
right?
Okay, let me
Okay.
tell you the whole story. And let's just point something out, okay? Big Jim and the Twins, or the Dick Mango Trio, have made numerous public appearances all over the world. One time in Kuwait, I was on a beach. A woman comes up, goes to take a picture with me and her kids. She's taking a picture with Marty and the Bushwhackers, and I scoot back, and hey, something came out. Louisville, Kentucky, Hunter, Triple H went to, we're wrestling on SmackDown, goes to suplex me. Things have a tendency to just, out they go. So I'd been wrestling Bob Holly quite a bit, and he would like to, almost every night, he would put me up in a suplex and then hold me. Well, I'd get bored. So I'd start pointing at his groin and going like this, and he never knew, and the audience would start laughing. And he, so what happened was that night Mick told him, and he got worked up, and it was a four corners match. It was the Dudleys were in one corner, the Hollies were in another, Mick and I were in another, and I forget who the fourth team was in Montreal. I did everything I could to avoid getting in the ring because I saw he was talking to him, and I knew what he was up to, jerk. And Bob went to grab me because I got trapped in there with Bob, and Bob went to grab me and suplex me, and I was like, oh, no, you don't. He was so strong, he just put me up there anyways, and then he just went and uncovered me. And at first, and he started turning so everybody in the building could see, and in NA, it was Montreal, it was winter, it was cold, it was a nice arena. I want to point that out, okay? So any descriptions were probably correct, but I was upside down, blood's going the other direction, so there's a lot of factors that played into it not being one of my better moments. So, but he kept me up there and kept my trunks pulled aside for quite a while, until he finally decided to. And people didn't really realize what was happening until I kept trying to reach my hand up there to cover myself up.
Right. Yeah, I was in the audience, and nobody else really caught that.
Yeah, they didn't really catch it at first.
Yeah, I was trying to.
You were there.
I was there. I was in the audience for that.
I apologize. Yeah.
I don't want to say it was a great memory because of that, but it was an entertaining memory.
There were a lot of people that were scarred for the rest of their life, I'm sure. But that was because Mick told on me.
Yeah.
And told Bob that I didn't wear underwear under my trunks, and told him what to do. So yeah, he made sure that he did it. So.
There's a lot of love in the room backstage with you guys.
Oh, with Mick and I? Yeah. He's obsessed with me, I think, to a point where it borderlines on like sexual or something. It's really weird.
Any questions? Okay, right back here.
It's funny,
Not
back in the
necessarily
day.
a question, more a request for a story.
Yeah.
One of my favorite house store stories involving you. I can sum it up. Ladies and gentlemen, your new hardcore champion, the goddamn table.
Oh, the table? Oh, out in LA, yeah. I was wrestling a hardcore match with Road Dogg that night, and I put him up on the table and came off on the table, and we just rebounded and flew off the table. And I put him back up there, tried to throw him through the table, he bounced off. I tried to do something else with him on the table, it would not break. I finally pinned him, and then and I got so obsessed with trying to break the table that like 6 or 7 more times I got up on the top rope. I jumped off and tried to put my butt through the table. I put double stomp the table, and every time I would literally just spring off and hit the mat. And finally, I just gave up, and I went the winner of your new hardcore champion, the goddamn table, and I threw the belt on the table, and I walked off. It's like, hey, the table won. I can't beat the table. So that table, I don't know what it was made of, but it would not, no matter what I did. I was 235 pounds, and I'm jumping off the top rope, and then just boing, and bouncing off. And it was just a wooden table. Would not break. Didn't matter what I did to it, wouldn't break. So I just threw up my hands and was like, yeah, your new hardcore champion is the table.
I think that table is in the Hall of Fame today, if I
It
remember.
should be. It was the toughest thing I have ever wrestled my entire life.
Aside from the table,
Yes.
what's one of your favorite matches? What's one of the ones that you remember that you just had the most fun, or was the most epic kind of moment of your career so far?
That's tough when, and Mick and I argue about this because Mick, because he's a dick. He's like, you say these things like it's a cop out, but it's really not. When you enjoy what you do, every time you go out there is one of those moments. And sometimes there are better moments than there are others. But it's just so enjoyable to go and get to do what you enjoy to do. If I was going to pick one, like the night in New Jersey and what was that? God, I can't remember where we did the pay-per-view, and I came out as the special guest partner for Lance Storm against Shane Douglas and Chris Candido, and there were 4,000 or 5,000 heads all in the crowd, and they did the strobe light, and it looked like, no pun intended, but it looked like a snowstorm happened in the building, with the strobe going and everything. That was probably one of the more amazing moments of my career. So really enjoyed that. It was fun. Where'd he go?
I'm over here, just making sure people can hear you.
Okay.
Any questions in the room so far?
Can ask ask any question you want.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm very curious. How did you and Steve Blackman getting paired together for the Head Cheese Tag Team? How did that happen?
Well, how that happened was they originally had an idea, and then Vince decided he didn't want to do it. I was approached. If you remember, there was a period of time where I was going out with other tag teams, but I was like, it was me and Bob and Crash, or it was myself and Edge and Christian, and I would turn on them in the match. I would go crazy and attack them. And so what they were doing was, at some point, all of those guys were going to come together and they were going to literally attack me. They were going to beat the crap out of me. I'd be off TV for a couple of weeks, and then I would show up on the stage, and air raid siren would go off. Bob and Crash would be in the ring, and I'd point, and from all sides, like 20 to 25 midgets, all dressed alike, were going to attack him. It was called the Swarm. Which, when Vince was like, I don't want to do that, and I was like, why? They travel very easily. We could stack them like cordwood and anything. They're not going to take up a lot of space. You know what I mean? So, and I've had a lot of experience with midgets, trust me. Or little people, I guess, I should say. Got to be politically correct. So, Vince didn't want to do it. And so I said, well, why don't you put me with Steve, because I could make his lack of a personality a personality. And that was how it started, and it got to the point where, those vignettes we did on SmackDown were the highest rated segments on the whole show. So we literally had a TV show within a TV show. That was how popular it was. And at one point they were thinking about giving us the tag team titles, but then something happened, I guess, and they chose to go a different direction and put him back on the Hardys or something. But I had a blast with Steve, because what you see Steve when he's outside the ring, that's really Steve Blackman, which was hilarious, because we would film things, and like the time we went to the old folks home and I wanted him to do stand-up comedy, and he, and like, for some reason he hates sing-alongs. He hates having anybody sing happy birthday to him, and he hates sing-alongs. And so, like, all these senior citizens were in the craft room and they were singing sing-along, and he started pacing and getting upset, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? And he goes, make him stop, I hate sing-alongs. And like, he was genuinely getting like where he was gonna go in and kill them all. And he would say things like, I would say, okay, so she's going to, this old lady's going to, basically tell you, screw you, Blackman. He goes, well, I go, what would you do if it were real? And he'd go, I'd just knock her out. I go, no, you can't do that. We're going to imply it, but you can't physically really do it because that's wrong. So that was always his reaction to anything was, well, I'd just beat him up, I'd just kill him. And I'd be like, no, we can't do that. So.
All right, who's next? Oh, this should be
This
good.
is my wife.
This should be good. All right,
That's
Jess, what
not
do you got?
fair. You can't ask questions.
Well, there's two stories that are funny. We're talking about Santa Claus. How about the time that you had Santa Claus tasered Jesus?
Oh. Well, just so you guys understand, one, I've never been tasered, nor will I ever be tasered. Okay? Yeah, well, good for you. Okay? I'm not riding the lightning. That's never going to happen. I went out, my brother was on the board of directors of Taser International. We went out there for some charity event to ride motorcycles for fallen police members. And I watched a video of this giant longhorn steer, and they stuck that thing through the fence and shot that bull, and it just went and stiffened up over and rocked on its back and its tongue on. And I went, I am never doing that. But I would talk other people into it. So, which never listen to me. So we went to a show literally the day after Christmas in Sandusky, Ohio. I got booked on the show, and Chaz the Headbanger was there. So these guys picked me up in Cleveland to take me to the show, and they're talking about last year's show, and I'm getting kind of upset because they're talking about they had a Pro-Am Battle Royal. That's where all of you can join and be in a Battle Royal, which is just insanely dangerous. So I'm getting worked up, right? Then the one security guy talks about how, it's truth, Jesus and they're having a rematch between our Lord and Savior Jesus against Santa Claus. That's a rematch because last year Jesus could not defeat Santa without the referee hitting Santa with a chair to beat him. So I'm sitting in the back going, I can't believe this. So we're having the conversation, and the security guy talks about how he carries a taser to settle people down in the bar. And I'm like, hey, can I use that? He goes, sure, what do you want to do with it? I go, don't worry. So I get immediately to the show. I locate Jesus, and I locate Santa, and Santa looks like a homeless guy in a Santa outfit. And I begin to have a conversation, and I'm doing my best salesman's job on telling them how you cannot let an audience down like you did last year, where you have a referee strike Santa to beat, so Jesus can beat him. I said, that's ridiculous. I said, not to mention Santa's just the day before has traveled all over the world. He's tired. Jesus should have an upper hand, He makes water into wine, So I thought, we got to work on this. So it takes a while, and several drink tickets that were given to me by the bar that I give to Santa to bribe him into being willing to allow Jesus to taser him twice. Now that's important. So I figure I'm going to go to hell, but they're probably going to be in the line in front of me, and it's guaranteed because I'm standing there, Chaz and I are watching, and out comes Jesus with a crown of barbed wire thorns and carrying a cross to the ring, and I'm like, well, he's in front going to hell. And then Santa comes out behind, and they proceed to have a hardcore match where they're beating each other up, and Santa's doing things to Jesus that are unnameable, and Jesus is doing things to Santa that shouldn't be seen. And then Jesus is very reticent, very resistant to wanting to taser Santa in the locker room. So it takes a while for me to convince Jesus to be willing to taser Santa. And that was the best part. I didn't realize after about a 20-minute conversation, me going, God damn it, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, Jesus, just taser Santa. I mean, he'll turn the other cheek, it'll be fine. He's not gonna get hurt. So we finally convince Jesus to taser Santa. I get him to agree. So then in the ring, proceeds to Jesus sticks Santa right in the stomach and zaps him, and Santa goes down like there's a rope that yanks him to the mat. Then he runs over, and Santa's on the mat, and he sticks the taser on him, and Santa's feet start to kick a little bit. And he covers him. 1, 2, 3, the place goes crazy. Somebody, I won't say who, starts the chant, "Do it again." So the chant goes up. Now, remember, Jesus was a little hesitant to want to do this. Not no more. So Santa is laying there on his belly. Jesus looks around. Somebody goes, "One more time." And the whole crowd starts chanting one more time. Jesus goes, "Well, let's go." And he goes and sticks it right on his kidney and just holds it. And you see Santa just kicking. So somebody again started the chant one more time. So Jesus is like, "Should I?" And he goes to walk over, and Santa's on his back and just goes boom and kicks him right in the head of his dick. And down Jesus goes. So when we get to the back, I'm like, "Guys, Jesus, come on now. We only agreed to 2. You did 3. So now you're going to have to let Santa get a revenge tasering on you. What do you think happened?" He agreed to do it. So he sticks him right in the side. He just jumped, and by that time the battery had worn out a little bit, but it was pretty funny. My wife seen me, we were in California, and these ladies were selling self-defense products with a taser, and I convinced a fan to take a taser shot so that I would give him an 8x10. So, also a fan in Oklahoma one time, I got him to, he came in with we were in a private room, and there were police everywhere, and they all had their tasers. And this kid's like maybe 120 pounds. He's got a black turtleneck, he's got glasses, and he's pulling on one of those roller bags, and on top of it, he's got like a bunch of belts on top of it. Inside, he's got all kinds of action figures, magazines, and stuff with me. And, I'm like, "What do you got in there?" And he tells me, and the lady that's with the promotion's like, "Oh, we can only sign one thing," and he just looks crestfallen, and I'm like, "Oh, no. Don't worry." And I'm just being silly. Like, this was the very first time this ever happened, and I didn't expect it to occur. So I just want to point that out. Like, this wasn't intentional. So I go, "Oh, we can work something out." And I'd already been talking to the cop that was standing beside me, and because he's talking about how he tasers people in the weekends when they come in and get drunk, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, hey, if you want me to sign everything, wouldn't you? If you're willing to take a taser shot." And I look at the cop, and he just kind of looks at me, and there was a female cop that was across the way, and she just kind of shrugged her shoulders. And I thought, well, this isn't going to happen, so, I'm just kidding anyways. I'll just sign everything anyhow. So he goes, he's like, and I just start talking to him real fast, and I'm like, "You just ride the light up for 2 or 3 seconds. It doesn't hurt. It's no big deal. It's like sticking your finger in a light socket." And I look at the guy, and he's just looking at me, right? Never expected it, I swear to God. The kid goes, "Well, I guess," and as the word "so" left his mouth, the cop just goes and sticks him in the side. And you heard, and his arms, the kid's arms threw up, and then in the air, and as if somebody had pulled him with a rope, he shot across the room and fell down. And the room just went silent. And I just sat there for a second. I was like, and I looked at the cop and I went, "You did it?" And he goes, "Well, he said yeah." And I'm like, and the other cop, I look at the other cop, and she's just going like this. Nobody's saying anything. And all of a sudden I hear, and I'm like, "What is that?" And I look over, and it's the kid on his knees, and he's trying to catch his breath where he got the wind knocked out of him. I went, "Oh my God." So I immediately go into damage control. I go set him on a chair. I start signing everything. I go to take a picture with him. I stand him up. I look down. He has peed himself. I set him back down. We proceed to take the photos. I sign everything, get him out. It's 3 days before I tell anyone that happened, because I felt so bad, because that was completely completely unintentional. I did not plan on that occurring.
So if there are tasers in the building, we should be keeping him away from them, is what's going on here right now. Okay, all right. This young man has a question.
Okay, just real quick too, I got a midget tasered one time too. That was funny.
So El Snow, you were the hardcore champion for a lot of times. What do you think of the current 24/7 champion compared to the hardcore champion? Do you think they should have kept the hardcore title if they were going to bring something back like that, or do what they're doing with the 24/7 title?
One thing about professional wrestling is that it should be kind of like a three-ring circus, in the sense that there's something for everybody. Everybody can't all be badasses. Everybody can't all be monsters. Everybody can't all be the same thing. So there should be something for everybody. You know, just the same with when you went to the circus. There was an animal act in one ring. There was the trapeze act in another, and there were, you know, the clowns or something, you know, in another one, or the acrobats. So you had something for all the audiences. And the 24/7 is a very entertaining championship. The problem is that making the title itself can't mean a whole lot because it changes hands too often on a regular basis, and they only have a certain level of the roster compete for it, when they should really, if the title really meant something, in the sense that if wrestlers were prize fighters, like that's what you're wanting to believe, that they're prize fighters, because the only consequence to anything that happens in the ring is that they could win or lose. And the consequence to that win or loss is that you either get paid or you don't. And if you win a title, any type of championship, you would get paid more. So, you know, Seth Rollins should be competing for that 24/7 title if he doesn't have another one. You know, everyone should. So they make a mistake by making only a certain level of the roster compete for it. And then you shouldn't have it change hands so often, because the more it changes hands, the more it devalues the title and makes it less of a challenge to achieve it. The hardcore title, before they enacted the 24/7 rule, was different because it was like no different than the Intercontinental or the, you know, European or whatever other titles, in the sense that it was just a different division, that you know, there were no rules per se, or no restrictions on what you could do to gain an advantage to beat your opponent, you know, and that meant that you could go anywhere in or outside the building, and you could, you know, use anything as a weapon along the way to try to win. And then that was why it meant a little bit more, because and the title itself didn't change hands as quite as frequently. So they could still use that 24/7 title, and but I would just, you know, have more of a varied part of the roster compete for it, and I wouldn't have it change hands quite as much. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. All right, Giovanni, what do you got for us, buddy?
First off, I'd like to say that you're a hero for the accident happened a few weeks back with the little boy.
I'm no hero.
Yeah,
everyone else would have done the exact same thing if they were there at that moment. So
I want to hear some Blue Meanie stories. I know you were very close to him.
Oh, Blue Meanie?
Yes.
Yes. Trained Blue Meanie, and one story, and I'm sure this is no surprise, because even on his social media, he still brags about his bowel and how much they smell. He's very proud of it. Why? I don't know, but he is. And there was a time where Meanie, myself, and a young man named Jason Campbell, thank God it was his car, and a lady who was kind of like a dead mother to a lot of wrestlers that doesn't get her due and respect. Her name was Phyllis Lee. She was very instrumental in helping a lot of people in their careers, that like X-Pac, Sean Waltman, the Malenkos. She got them into Japan. She got Dan Severn originally into the first UFC. You know, she helped me. She helped Sabu. She helped a lot of people with their careers. We were traveling together in winter over to New Jersey for the NWA World Title Tournament for Dennis Coralluzzo. And on the way back, Meanie, which it doesn't matter what he eats, somehow it ferments in him and then becomes the most rancid, disgusting flatulence that you can imagine. So we were in the car, I was in the back seat, and he proceeded to do this on a regular basis, to the point to where I started flicking matches at him, trying to set him on fire, because they were so bad. and it was winter, so he couldn't roll the window down. It got to the point where I would flick matches at him, and he would just lift himself off the seat, and I would smell it again, and I assumed he had done it again, so of course I'd start punching him. And it turned out that he wasn't doing it anymore. He had implanted the stink in the seat, and had implanted the stink in the seat so bad that when we got home 3 days later, I'm in my wrestling school, and I'm in the office, and I hear a big commotion outside in where the ring's at. And I go out there, and I see Jason Campbell chasing Meanie around the ring, trying to kill him, because apparently the 3 days since, he has been doing everything he can with charcoal and vinegar to get the smell out of the car, and he can't do it. A year later, Jason showed back up, still had the car, and said that the sun would come through the back window and hit that seat, and Meanie's ass would come back out. The only way he was able to get rid of the car, because Vinny had stink stained that seat so bad, was he got T-boned and was finally able to get the car totaled and get a new car. He could not sell it because every time he tried to sell it, the smell came out of the seat and people wouldn't buy the car.
So basically, behind the scenes, it's one giant frat party.
To a point, yeah.
To a point, yeah.
To a point, yeah. And Meanie's very proud of that, so it's not like I'm saying something that's going to embarrass him. So if you go up and ask him about it, he'll get a smile of pride, and he'll tell you the whole story himself.
That's amazing. There you go.
I got one more. Also, what's your opinion on Dylan Bostic?
Dylan Bostic, I think that he's a great young talent, and that has a ton of potential. You know, he just hasn't gotten that break yet.
And do you still keep in touch with the Tough Enough crew, like Maven and
every once in a while, I will, but it's hard to keep in touch with everybody, because this business is very much about you're only as good as the last thing you did. So you're always looking to the next thing, always moving forward, and so are they as well. So it's very difficult to really stay in proper contact with each other as much as you'd like. But as soon as you do, like if Maven were here today, it'd be like no time had passed. We'd just, that's why wrestling conventions are so cool for us, because it's like a family reunion for us. We show up, and because most of us for years have spent more time on the road and spent more time with the other people than we did with our own families. So. Oh, Josh and I, yeah. Josh is, Josh is married to Madison Rain. They have a kid, and he's doing great. He works for Impact Wrestling, and I'm very happy and very proud of Josh. So.
Yeah, what are some of the things you're doing when you're not working on wrestling? What are some of the things outside of wrestling that you've been working on?
Well, I wrote my own autobiography or whatever, and I wasn't too cool on doing that because I didn't find my own self that interesting. But I put a lot of funny stories in there and a lot of experiences on the road that have taught me life lessons, and try to impart those to other people. And I try not to be negative or talk bad about anybody, because I really like everybody, and genuinely am appreciative about the fact that I've had that long of a career. Mm-hmm. So it's a little different type of book, I guess you could say, than typical wrestling books. With Broken Icon Comics, we've got a comic book out, and it's really very flattered and very impressed with it. Ton of top professionals in the comic book industry worked on it. And it will be a regular ongoing series. It's not a bio type of it's not about wrestling. Sometimes the story will start in wrestling, but it all takes place in my head. And so it allows us to do different adventures. First one is in a post-apocalyptic world, and I have a detective agency, and I overhear that a waitress or a barmaid says that she got her heart stolen, meaning she's in love, but I assume that her heart really was stolen. And then I take on the case of trying to retrieve it. The next one is I'm going to be a secret agent, and I'm trying to infiltrate Canada, which is Russia to the north, which is true, because we all are concerned about building a wall to the south when we really should be building it to the north, because they look like us, they sound like us, but they're not us. Okay? That's a big problem you're all ignoring, and it's right upstairs, especially for you guys. It ain't that far.
No. Stone's throw.
And, they can infiltrate real quick.
Yeah.
We are also doing like a Marvel team up, where I'll team up with different wrestlers. So the first one is with Chavo Guerrero, and we're doing a Western. And he's got Pepe the Stick Horse, and so
I remember that. Oh my God.
yeah. And then another one we're gonna do with Ricky Steamboat, and it'll be like Game of Thrones, because he wants to ride a dragon.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. And I just talked to Mick Foley, and we might do one where we save Santa or something, you know. And then doing that, I own OVW, where we are the only actual professional wrestling school that is actually a trade school that's authorized as a trade school by the State Office of Proprietary Education. They oversee, in any state, they oversee the trade schools, secondary education, universities, colleges, as such. So we are actually designated as an actual trade school. We're the only one in the world.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
And OVW has been in existence for probably well over 33 years, I believe. Raw is the only other show on television that has more episodes concurrently on the air than we do. We've beaten SmackDown by 1 week on the number of episodes, so we're at like episode 1150 whatever this week. So every Thursday we air live on Fight TV from 7 to 9, and then we air regionally on several local networks around the region of Kentucky. We then also air nationally on Cox Sports out of Louisiana. We're just now on the Action Channel, which is in about 25 million homes, YTA, which is in 25 million homes, the RNC Network, the Lily Network, Game Plus Network. I lose track. Then we're internationally, we're on Sky Sports, we're on Sports International. So we're literally all over the world, plus YouTube as well. And we have our own Roku channel. We're on Amazon Prime. Let me think. And we produce that live. We're outside of WWE and AEW. We're the only other wrestling company that produces a live television show every week. And so that keeps me pretty busy. And I'm training little people to be helper animals for regular people.
So Al Snow keeps busy.
Put a harness on.
There you go. So Al Snow keeps busy is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, now folks, the Broken Icon folks were supposed to be here this week. Unfortunately, because of a lot of obvious reasons these days, they were not able to join us. But they are represented at a lot of the comic book shops throughout Rochester. So if you want to see any of the things that Al's been talking about, you can go to First Print, you can go to Wonderland, 13th Verse, Comics, etc. You'll be able to find all
come
those
over to the
materials
table.
there.
We've got the comic book there at the table with the Rochester Comic Con's official variant cover. It's me in The Wizard of Oz. I look like Dorothy. But the cover has nothing to do with the story. But it's just cool that, I'm Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Any last questions for Al? All right, Jared,
Don't
come on,
be
bring it
shy.
up, buddy. Let's see what you got.
If you could pick any wrestler in the whole world, what wrestler would you pick to have for your dream match opponent?
I would have loved to have gotten the opportunity, and never did, to wrestle Kurt Angle. I think we could have really had a great wrestling match. He reminds me a lot like Chris Benoit. I had great matches with Chris Benoit, and I really enjoyed being in the ring and wrestling him at the time. So, but Kurt, I think we could have done something very entertaining and very believable.
Nice. Anybody else? One more question over here. Very good. Go ahead, sir.
What do you think of the current state with the AEW and WWE, and where do you think that will go?
Well, what I think of it is, I think it's great. I think that the more variety and the more competition that we can have in the wrestling business only serves to make the wrestling business better for everyone. It makes it better for you, the fans, because you guys have more options, more choices, and more variety. It makes it better for the wrestlers because they have an opportunity now to have another place where they can make a living. It makes it, just in general, it just makes it better for everyone. It increases everyone's visibility, it increases everyone's opportunities, it increases your enjoyment. You have now better options, and I really hope that they don't just survive. I hope that they thrive and that they succeed and that they just continue to grow. They're not going to, I hate to break this to you, but you're not going to beat WWE, okay? You just can't. I'm sorry, you can't out WWE. And not to mention, you have to understand just from a simple concept of doing business, any type of business has to take 5 to 6 years to really get momentum and start to, make a profit and have that experience behind them, okay? That's the key, experience. WWE has experience of Vince's great-grandfather, his grandfather, his father, and him. That's decades of work and experience in the world of professional wrestling. And WWE has become an iconic brand. WWE is like what Harley Davidson is to motorcycles. WWE is like what Q-tip is to, cotton swabs. WWE is like what Band-Aid is to adhesive strips. Because that's not what they're actually called. Kleenex is not, it's just a face tissue. It's not Kleenex. That was a brand. And WWE is iconic in that way. You think of wrestling, you think of what? WWE. So AEW is not going to and should not try to beat WWE. They should be and do what they are doing, which is be an alternative and give something different. And I hope that they continue to grow and survive and thrive and do massive amounts of business, because it's only going to help everyone succeed that much more. It's only going to help OVW and help me to achieve what I want to achieve as well. So, please, let's have more. Let's have another company open up and, on a national level and start competing with AEW and WWE as well. Let's just keep going as much as we can.
Al, thank you very much for your time today and joining us this weekend.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody being here.
Make sure you get a chance to visit Al, get your autographs, get your pictures with him. You'll be here until about 4, I think?
I think 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
And I appreciate you guys all being with us this weekend. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. What's the photo? Is that right now?
Right. So Al will be going across to the photo op area, and that will be happening right now.
Okay. Right this second.
Thanks, everybody.
Guys.